Chapter 46. Teleology and Law. The word and the concept of teleology are so alien now that a definition is necessary. Teleology is the study of meaning and design in nature. It holds that ends are immanent in nature. Things move towards a given end or purpose which is preordained. In the 1930s, belief in God-given teleology was much ridiculed. Now it is rarely mentioned. The only teleology which is now acceptable, although not so called, is humanistic and Marxist. For humanism, man creates the goals and man makes them come to pass by his planning and controls. For Marxism, nature works inexorably to achieve the goal of communism, but why a blind and dead natural order should do so, we are never told. Law, by its very nature, is teleological because it posits a certain order and penalizes all deviations from it. However, the cynicism concerning teleology is so great that we hear too little about the goal and purpose of law. The Christian view of law is teleological because its view of God is providential. Romans 8:28 sums this up by declaring that God makes all things work together for good for his elect people. All peoples also are under the law of God, and hence they must all be treated as our neighbour. Leviticus 19:18-33 following. The law, therefore, must be free of any respect of persons, rich or poor, a fellow covenant member or an alien. Deuteronomy 1:16-18. This belief became deeply entrenched in Christian thinking. All men were seen as neighbours, and all as equally accountable. Thus, medieval man saw King Arthur as a contemporary, depicting a man of the 5th or 6th century as a 12th century knight and ruler. There is reason to believe that this was deliberate. The differences between areas no more than 50 miles apart was very great, even to their language. The English of London or the French of Paris was not always understandable at 50 or 100 miles distance. Latin was for the literate truly an international language. Why, then, was there no attempt at, quote, authentic, end quote, depictions of King Arthur and his, quote unquote, knights? What was truly authentic for the 12th century narrators was the equal validity of the law of God for King Arthur and for themselves. This made them contemporaries. In this respect, they were more internationally minded than the people of the 20th century, who are sharply aware of ethnic and cultural differences. With the age of exploration, some men brought to Europe wives from Africa and Asia, and this was no problem where the women became Christians. The explorers were both far harsher and far more tolerant than our moderns because they saw these foreign peoples not as primitives, but as their contemporaries. Their differences were seen as essentially religious, not as differing stages of evolution. A once common Christian expression, now rarely heard, was applied to any man of a lower moral status. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Because law points to a desired state, it is theological and teleological. The quote-unquote theology can vary, but the fact of a goal remains. To say, thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not commit adultery, is to look to a murder-free and adultery-free world. To say, thou shalt not steal is to work towards a world order in which other people's properties are respected. A world order without the sins and crimes enumerated by the law is thus the desired world and the goal of the law. In recent generations, some quote-unquote minority groups in the United States and elsewhere have at times been treated indulgently in their, quote, minor, end quote, lawlessness because they are held to be incapable of behaving differently. This is a form of racism and a disrespect for the law. One of the aspects of American behaviour that has been commendable as against the form of racism just cited has been an insistence in many quarters on a like standard for all. Thus, an immigrant, understanding very little English, erred because he misunderstood his instructions. He was bluntly rebuked and told that one of his duties on the job was to understand what he was told and to ask if he failed to do so or get fired. The 12th century writer on King Arthur was more accurate than the 20th century writers on American Puritans, who can be painstaking in their research on clothing and customs while projecting their bigotry on a people they refuse to understand. Theology is inescapable, and if we reject the biblical form thereof, we will become victims of alien teleologies, especially humanistic and Marxist ones. Of late, Islamic teleologies have become increasingly prevalent.